Top story at 10, Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane has raised concerns about weekend newspaper reports about the leaked document. According to the leaked document, the Public Protector claims that she has found President Cyril Ramaphosa guilty of accidentally misleading Parliament over the 500,000 Rand Bosasa donation to his election campaign for the presidency of the ANC. The document is apparently linked to complaints from the Democratic Alliance and Economic Freedom Fighters against Ramaphosa. Yesterday, an article was published in a Sunday newspaper about the document allegedly originating from her office. According to the article, the document was in question was accessed through one of the president's confidants. Mkhwebane says the leaked document could potentially jeopardize her investigations and prejudice the subjects of the probe. Let's get some analysis on the reported leaked report. We are now joined via Skype by Phephelaphi Dube, a constitutional law analyst. Phephelaphi, thank you very much indeed for your time. So in the statement from the Public Protector, it notes with concerns claims contained in a news article seemingly based on a document purportedly to be in a preliminary report of one of her investigations following, that DA and EFF complaints against the president. She said that she won't comment on the content of any news report or of the leaked document. Let's look at the possible scenarios, Phephelaphi. If the Public Protector finds against the president, as the newspaper article alleges, found that he inadvertently misled Parliament. My understanding of the word inadvertently means without intention. What sort of remedial action could he possibly face?
Well, I think the important thing that we need to understand here is what the courts have previously pronounced on incidents where public officials have inadvertently committed some kind of illegality or some kind of unethical conduct. And I think in this regard, we should perhaps have recourse to the Nkandla judgment, which was handed down by the Constitutional Court, which involved the former president. And there, the Constitutional Court was quite clear that even though the president may have been acting inadvertently on legal advice that he received from his legal representatives. But the crux of the matter was that there was still some unlawful conduct. And because of that, the court still found him liable. So I think in this regard, it does suggest that even if the President Ramaphosa may have acted inadvertently, but the bottom line is that there was some kind of unlawful conduct on his behalf. So I think that's where the starting matter should be. But of course, we also need to consider the powers of the Public Protector in the sense that the Public Protector herself has extremely wide powers in terms of the remedial action that she can recommend that the president should take in this regard. So it could range from really the president having to ensure that this money is returned to its rightful place, or that the president, or indeed it could be something as vague as the president issuing an apology to the nation. So in that sense, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of leeway that the Public Protector can take going forward once she has established that there was indeed some kind of unethical conduct on the part of the president.
Does it matter that he is a sitting president?
Well, in terms of the members of the Executive Ethics Act, and I think this was the complaint which was brought in terms of that particular act includes all members of the executive, including the president, who is indeed the head of the executive. So the fact that he is a sitting president does not absolve him if there is reason to find that he has acted unethically.
Let's look at the Public Protector now. The SACP has joined calls for a parliamentary inquiry into the Public Protector. We also understand that the DA also wants an inquiry into Busisiwe Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office. Is the criticism warranted, do you think, Phephelaphi?
Well, I think in order to answer that question, we perhaps need to have a holistic view of the work of the Public Protector's Office. And in this regard, let's consider the amount of cases that have been settled by the Public Protector. So having looked at the 2017-2018 annual reports, there are close to 20,000 cases that have been settled. And if we consider the number of reports that have been released by the Public Protector from the beginning of the year up until now, there are 19 such reports that have been released. And if we consider overall the number of reports that the public protector has released ever since she came into the office, there are about 70 research reports which have been released. And of those 70 reports, it's 21 reports that have been taken on review. And of those 21 reports that have been taken on review, it's only two, namely the South African Reserve Bank matter and the Freddie Dairy matter, where the courts have not found in favor of the public protector. And if we also consider the work of the public protector in terms of bringing the work of the public protector closer to the ordinary people, I think she has managed to raise the profile. But of course, I think that's not where the question ends. We should also consider her conduct in the South African Reserve Bank matter, as well as her conduct in the Freddie Dairy case matter. And I think in both these instances, the courts had some very strong sentiments to say about the manner in which the public protector conducted himself. So, for example, if we consider that in the Reserve Bank matter, she tried to change the mandate of Parliament, and in that sense it appeared as if she didn't quite understand the powers or the functions of the public protector's office. And if we also consider the fact that she appeared to have been consulting the state security agency as well as the presidency, and then later on sought to hide these facts from the Reserve Bank as well as ABSA, I think that conduct on its own does go a long way in terms of suggesting that there was some damage which was done to the integrity of the office. And I think if we also consider her conduct in the Freddie Dairy case, for example, the fact that she appeared to seem to shield the ANC Secretary General, and the fact that she changed some of the remedial recommendations from the report that the previous public protector had compiled. So I think if we consider her conduct in those two matters, then there could be reason to suggest that she is incompetent and should be removed from that particular position.
Going to social media, to YouTube in particular, to explain some of her actions, do you think it's helping or hurting her case?
Well, first of all, it was quite unprecedented. But on the other hand, bearing in mind the age that we live in, one should not perhaps be too harsh in terms of in terms of how we view her use of social media. But I think for me, the real concern is the fact that she apparently went to social media first without having first consulted either Pravin Gordhan or his legal representatives. And I think for me, that's where the main concern lies. Just the fact that there would appear to be this disproportionate focus on Minister Gordhan, and this would appear to be at the expense of all of the other cases that are sitting on the public protector's desk.
Phephelaphi, what is the procedures to remove a public protector from office?
Well, in terms of the Constitution, first of all, there has to be an inquiry by Parliament into her fitness to hold office. And she can only be removed from office if she's either incompetent or has some kind of misconduct or is simply incapacitated to continue with that. So first of all, a parliamentary inquiry has to establish that. And once any one of these grounds has been established, then the National Assembly should then sit and decide whether or not the recommendation that has been given by this parliamentary committee should indeed be carried. And if it is going to be carried, then there has to be 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly should vote in favor of that decision to remove her from office. But of course, it is important to note that given the importance of her office, so there's a very high majority that's demanded from the members of the National Assembly. And in a sense, that's where her security lies, because she's obviously got a very strong degree of tenure security.
Look, if 2/3 of Parliament vote in favor of removing her, can she appeal that?
Well, it would be very difficult for her to appeal that, bearing in mind the notion of separation of powers. So separation of powers essentially dictates that there are three arms of government, and each of these three arms of government have their particular role to play in terms of ensuring South Africa functions as a constitutional democracy. So in this case, the fact that she can't be removed from office is really a matter that's left to Parliament. And unless and until the decision decision is taken through an unprocedural way, or if there's some kind of malice, then that's really the only time where the courts can weigh in on that particular decision. But on the whole, it's a decision that is left to Parliament rather than the courts.
So, misconduct, incapacity, and incompetence, some of the issues looked at when removing a public protector. Let's look at incompetence. How do you prove incompetence?
Well, incompetence is really a value judgment, and I think in this regard we should perhaps be paying much closer attention to the sentiments that have been expressed about her by the courts. And I think in this regard we should also look at how other public officials have been removed from their office. So, for example, if we consider what has been happening within the National Prosecuting Authority, the fact that we've had people like Menzies Simelane being removed from their office because of the sentiments about them that were expressed by previous court judgments. So if we take into account the fact that Menzies Simelane was said to be a liar, basically, by the Free Njinwala Commission, and the fact that the court then further said that you cannot have an individual who's been deemed to be a liar sitting at the head of the National Prosecuting Authority. So I think in this regard, if we consider what the courts have said about the public protector in her conduct, then perhaps there could be room to say that she is incompetent. So, for example, the fact that the Gauteng High Court said that there was a reasonable suspicion of bias on the part of the public protector, and the fact that in the Fred Dairy case matter, where again the same court said that the public protector's report was unlawful and unconstitutional. So I think these two factors could weigh heavily in terms of assessing the competence of the public protector.
It is indeed a developing story. We'll be no doubt keeping a close eye on the story. And as always, we appreciate your insight. Phephelaphi Dube, a constitutional law analyst. Well, as we've been reporting, the